We'll get started here in 5 minutes. We're going to be doing an international podcast today. Canada, EU, regulations, launch strategies. Ask those questions in the comment section whenever you're ready. Welcome to the My Amazon Guy podcast. My name is Stephen Pope. I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. Today, we're going to do a podcast on all things international. You got questions about Canada, Europe, Australia, Singapore, you name it. We've got an expert today, and we'll bring him on here momentarily. Real quick, we'll just say hello to everybody. David, hello. Thanks for coming in again. It's nice to see you again. Sunny, hello. Hello from us. We're always sharing our knowledge, and you're very welcome, Sonny. So I appreciate you stopping by. We'll go ahead and bring in Kevin Sanderson now. Kevin, welcome to the My Amazon Guy podcast.
I have to say, I was really enjoying that music there before we got started. That was that's worth the cost of admission just right there.
Well, I think we all enjoy that music, quite frankly, and
yes.
So we're excited to have that timer. I do need to get like an updated timer for like each day of the week, because we don't do just Fridays and noon now.
Well, you're at least advertising your Friday noon one. So yes. I was thinking like, oh, maybe you should be back here Friday at 11:55 or something.
Yeah. So every Friday at noon, we take generic questions, and then I'm bringing guests in Monday through Thursday. So today will be a special podcast with all things international. And then Sierra is also helping us out. Hi, Sierra. She's in the background and helping us out behind the scenes, monitoring comments and everything. So appreciate your help. All right. So Kevin, for those that don't know who you are and what you do, can you bring up our audience up to speed?
Yeah, great question. And so first off, thank you for doing this. This is a great thing for everyone that you're bringing on special guests. I'm honored to be one of them. So, but it's a good way we can all learn from each other. So basically, my background is I've been selling on Amazon personally for about 5.5 years. It was almost 6 years ago now that I think about it, that I registered my seller account, dabbled in a little bit of retail arbitrage, and eventually launched my own brand. And I came to realize quickly that as I was growing, there's different ways to grow. You either have more products to sell or more people to sell to. And so I realized that scaling products to sell, especially when you're first out, can be expensive. So you got to find other places to sell to people. And it was like, okay, let me try things like eBay and Amazon's international marketplaces. And I came to find very quickly I was getting a lot more bang for my buck with the time I was investing going into places like Canada or UK than Wish.com or Jet.com or eBay or even Etsy or my own Shopify store. I learned very quickly in the Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams, where they said you build it and they will come. It did not apply with your own web store.
Well, that particular movie is a classic by all stretch.
Yes.
Some good baseball fields included. Your video is still coming a little bit fuzzy. I know we tried to troubleshoot that before we came on, so apologies to the audience. So Kevin, if there's anything you've got going on in the background, feel free to dwindle it down in case there's a resource hog. So today we were going to be talking about international, any questions related to that. So Kevin is an expert outside of international selling on Amazon. And could field additional questions. But if you have an international question, today is the day to ask that. All right, so I am going to jump into our first question, which comes in from BodyComp. If you're an Amazon private label seller, are you able to start the words patent pending in your Amazon listing description? I'm going to weigh in on this, and then I'll toss it to you here, Kevin. So I would say Amazon does not want you to do any R for symbols for trademarks, no C symbols for copyright. Patent pending is completely fine. Just doesn't add a lot of value, in my opinion, other than maybe scaring off some competition, right? If you tell a competition you got a patent pending, they may say, hey, maybe I don't want to launch that item lookalike after all. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's one of those fears people have of like, oh, I'm going to get ripped off. Well, chances are you probably will anyway, even if you have a patented product.
True.
I mean, let me take a step back. I was at an event one time, and Damon Johns was the speaker, and he said he has had many patents in the past and many trademarks in the past. He said it's almost impossible to defend a patent, whereas a trademark, it's like pretty much stone cold. It'll hold up in just about any court of law for whatever the jurisdiction is. So for him, and I see his point was that sometimes what's the value of having it? And so you know, could it maybe help customers make a decision like, oh, this is something, but like at the end of the day, people are more worried about like, does this solve what I'm looking for? So I would say maybe include it in the description, but I wouldn't make it prominent in like the title, because you're using up your link juice, so to speak, for words that would be more beneficial for you.
And one thing that Amazon's kind of shied away from is like guarantee statements or money back guarantees. So if you've got a bullet point that has a money back guarantee, that's probably the one I would cut for a patent pending comment. But again, I think both are pretty low value. So I agree with Kevin. Anna says, hey, any update on the 200 limit? Unfortunately, we do not have any update. Kevin, have you seen anything on that front?
No, actually. And I did a video on this in Canada. They took a step backwards and went to 75.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So
what happened?
Well, so I think it's a variety of things. So COVID is still a hot thing everywhere, but like it's like a bigger topic, I think, in Canada. And they had a warehouse in Brampton, Ontario, which was shut down by the local health authorities to quarantine for 2 months. Like all the inventory there is just stuck. And so I've noticed a bit of a influence on my sales in Canada. But the thing I will say is this 75 from 200 change in Canada happened before then. But like, if you think about it, if in the US you're held to 200, in Canada, oftentimes people see 10 to 20% increase off of their US sales. So that's more 75. I've got my calculator. So 75 divided by 200 is 37.5%. So you actually, based on what your expected sales will be, you have more as a percentage of allowable units to start with, if my logic makes sense there.
So I'm currently looking up your channel to see if I can find the international video you mentioned. I'll bring it up on screen here, and you can maybe direct me a tiny bit. That way we can share the video in case anybody wants to hear more about the Canada limitations. Tell me where to go.
Yeah, so it is the one that says
Control F Canada. There we go. This one.
Yeah, FBA inventory limits in Canada.
Perfect. So as you can see, guys, Kevin's putting out a tremendous amount of content right now. So we'll put a link to his channel in here. You guys can give him a whirl if you're curious to see it. Feel free to watch that following our video today.
Well, thank
cool.
you.
So we're interesting to see Canada's taking a step back. Maybe they're out of room up in Canada. We'll see what happens there. AJ asks, hi, Kevin. I watched your video on selling in Australia. Which other countries are that simple to enter, where you only need to register on an Amazon account and ship to an FBA warehouse with no government registration?
Yes. So that is one of the few where it's really that simple. But I tend to find there's a mix of, I want to be careful what I say here because I don't want to confuse folks, because I also will say you can always make things more complicated later, start simple, but also too, it has to be in relation to what your expected return on investment of time spent. And so like Europe is a lot harder to get into. It's not impossible. It's just, there's a lot more boxes you have to check off and a lot more formalities with the government. Oh, and customs, everything's more challenging. And whether we're talking about the European Union or now the former European Union country of the UK, all of them, like that, it's a lot more complex. Whereas it's kind of like, I think, leveling up from like starting in a place like Canada. Most people tend to get like way more sales, about 5 to 10 times more sales in Canada than they would in Australia.
So if we had to rank the countries from top to bottom, obviously US takes the cake. What's the second country somebody should launch and why?
I think Canada. And a lot of people will talk about Europe and all the great, because of the population in Europe. Europe's complicated and there's a lot of landmines you can step on. And some of it is just getting to be more comfortable with how things work outside of the US. Whereas Canada, it's like, it operates very similar to the US and like the words people use to describe things. Their culture is very similar to US. And so their preferences are more similar to US culture and what US consumers buy. And because there is a form you have to fill out on the front end, and once a year, you have to file with the Canadian government for your sales tax that you collected. It scares away a lot of competition. So even though the population is about 12% of the US population, it's not unheard of to get, 10, 15, 20. I've seen people tell me as high as 35% of their US sales they see in Canada. Just because when you compare the competition between the different marketplaces, it's so much easier to start there. So Canada would be my first stop. Then I would go into the UK, which is kind of leveling up. So it's kind of like if you're going international, you just went from like JV varsity, because it is a lot more complex going into the UK, but you could potentially get a lot higher sale. I wouldn't say a lot higher sales. The sales are generally higher for most folks in the UK than they are in Canada. Although when you take the money you take to the bank, oftentimes tends to be similar because the margins are a little lower in the UK because you got to factor in VAT included in your selling price. And then I would go into mainland Europe, start in Germany, and then use that as a base of operation into the other marketplaces in Europe. And then I would go.
Germany's a bigger market than the UK, though, right?
Yeah. So, and now you start to get it into like, okay, so Canada, the culture is most similar to the US, and
Sure.
what people buy is similar. And then the UK, they start looking for things using different words. And then in Germany, it's like different language, different culture, different tastes.
In the UK, it's like they don't call it a garbage can, they call it a rubbish bin. Or they don't call it a coupon, it's a voucher, right?
Right. So there's all those little, or like, the example people in the UK will use is we would say sweatshirt, they would say jumper. And so
yeah, that would be a really weird.
things.
Yeah, that'd be a really weird thing to say in America.
Right. Now, some of that you pick up some of these terms in like search term reports if you're doing like auto campaigns. So you can pick those things up. But when you start getting into other marketplaces, it gets harder figuring out some of these keywords and how relevant they truly are.
What do you mean? Don't just pop it into Google Translate and call it a day?
Well, Amazon probably will do that. So if you ever get into a program with Amazon, we'll translate your listings. We'll use machine translation, and we have someone who will check it. It'll be checked by a human. And I don't know what the checking process is other than to say, oh yeah, it's there. It looks like it really is in German or whatever the case is. So I've even had people from the Amazon global selling team say, yeah, the translations weren't as good as we had hoped.
All right. So Trish says, yo, what's up? Pumped for the live stream today. Appreciate the feedback and the energy. Right back at you, Trish. Anna says, all good. Got EIN and approved my seller account 5 minutes ago. So you are just beginning your journey. Yeah. So good luck to you, Anna. I hope to hear your success along the way. It's a lot of effort as you get going. Body comp. Also, once you send in your 200 product limit and it reaches the Amazon warehouse successfully, are you immediately allowed to send in 200 more right after that? Or do you have to completely sell out? Kevin, I'll give you first take.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And so for the most part, especially when you're first starting out with a product at the ASIN level, it's going to be, if you sell 10, you can still allow you to create a shipment for 10 more. And so whatever you're kind of balancing out to the 200, and over time, if your product is selling well enough, their algorithm in its infinite wisdom will decide that you can send in more, and it will give you a different allotment, which could change almost daily, it seems like. Although I'll let Stephen expand on that a little more.
So we had Mo on our team did a launch just under a week ago. And so he's launching items on his own Amazon account. We actually encourage people at My Amazon Guide to run their own Amazon accounts. And I guess I should have gone to the leadership page instead of the coaching call page. But in any case, so he's up in Canada and he launched in the US. And so he had the 200 limit, just like everybody else. The moment, and he sold through all 200 in less than 2 or 3 days. See it like heavy PPC campaign, the typical strat. It allowed him to send in 3,000 right after selling the 200. So
really,
so it's interesting, right? So I wouldn't call it an update to the 200 limit, but I would say it's not like straight up tit for tat. It goes in exponential. So if you sell the units in a certain time period, you'll gain more than 1 for 1.
Now, do you think they're associating it to like what the algorithm is thinking your velocity is for like a 90-day sales period? Because I was under the impression they're trying to keep it to basically your 90 days worth of stock.
Yeah, I think that it's somewhere between 60 and 90 on the estimates. Like I always keep my FBA stock at 60 if I can. But I usually tell a lot of my clients to go to 90 because stock out concerns are pretty difficult to keep up with these days.
Right.
But in any case, if you are running into restrictions, it's because your velocity is not high enough typically. So yeah, so that makes sense. All right, so let's go to our next question here. So Anna says, ready to rock with brand registry soon. We do have a trademark service for any of those that don't know. You can go over to myamazonguy.com and get a trademark for $775. Do that in less than a day. We'll turn over the serial number for you. And you get brand registry all in under 7 days. This has changed in the last 90 days with pending trademarks now accepted on Amazon.
Wait, what trademarks accepted on Amazon? I'm intrigued now myself.
So basically a pending trademark was not accepted within Amazon until the last week in December. And then after the last week in December, they started to accept them. I have like a 10 video series on like how it morphed in this very short time period. Like in less than 30 days, it changed 4 times. Yeah. And now it's stable. So today, if you order a trademark, doesn't matter if you get it from me, you, or anyone else, or you do it yourself, you can go file the serial number within 5 days after obtaining it. This is only true for word marks, not for creative marks. Creative marks take a full 30 days. And that's why we prefer word marks. But then once you have the word mark, you can then go right over to brandservices.amazon.com and file your brand registry. And then you get access to brand registry about 48 hours later than that. Start creating your A+ content. So if you are about to launch a new brand, the time is now to get your trademark. And this is true for any trademark at all internationally. So you don't have to, like if you got a trademark in Canada and you want to bring it to the US, you got a trademark in the UK, you want to bring it to the US, or vice versa, right? So since today is mostly an international conversation, if you've got a US PTO trademark, you can go to Germany and get your brand registry in the same time period. So that's really good. All right, so our next question coming in from Sunny. I have a question about coming back in stock. I have been out of stock for more than a month due to shipping delays. That's where that comes in, that 90-day stocking conversation we just about had.
Yep.
What would be the best approach to get back in stock and gain momentum? I'll go to you first, Kevin.
I'm a very vanilla, not into the latest tactics guy. I just basically have the philosophy of send in stock, turn on PPC, and go.
You say vanilla and I say classic because
classic. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, because the classic techniques always work, right?
Yes.
Like the four basics, as I like to call them. Like there's things that generate traffic, which is SEO and PPC, and then there's things that improve conversion rate, like catalog management and design. So I'd say any of those classics will always work. And so like your search, find, buy strategies, a little shaky right now. External traffic, kind of hard to measure. So yeah, nothing wrong with your classic answer in my opinion. But Sonny, what I would say is, flip your stock back into FBA and go ham, especially in the first 2 weeks. Treat it like a honeymoon period, even though it's not. It's like a reactivation period, if you will. And just get as many sales velocity as you can as you come back in stock. That's the best advice I give on that front. Nylon says, unless that applies to a total number of ASINs and not quantity per ASIN, and I'm misinterpreting. So I think he's continuing. I might have skipped some context here. Actually, I did. Let me go way up. All right. I skipped a bunch of comments. We're going to scroll way up. We got a lot of
body comp is feeling the music like I was.
Yeah. So, all right. So we got some, Mikhail says, hi, Steven. Hi from Hong Kong. Okay, Sierra, you can drive. Go ahead, Sierra. I'll let you drive. Hi from Hong Kong, Snookos. Arish says, what is better, opening a new seller central account in each country or use the global account? Pros and cons. Actually, I have very strong opinions on this one. Let's see what you say first, though.
I use the global account. I like having the list of all my sales, like right there in the dashboard, as well as how much money I have in the being held to come back to me. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and why.
Well, first, I don't want to pay $40 a month for each account. So I think the global account makes a lot of sense to me, because if you open up a new Seller Central account, you're going to pay the fee every single time unless they're all connected. This is a new benefit, right? Because they used to charge for each country, and they changed that like 6 or so months ago, if I remember right.
Right.
And then it's all one fee for all. And then all the same reasons you expressed, I think it's much easier to navigate. The other problem I saw some people run into is duplicate account scenarios come into play. If you have the same or multiple email addresses on multiple accounts, even though they're in different countries, we've seen challenges with that. So I think without a doubt in my mind, Arish, I think both Kevin and I would say go global account. There's really no pro to having multiple accounts, in my opinion.
It used to be in some of the directions, because it used to be you'd have to use a different email address to set up like a European account. So like Europe was kind of umbrella, North America is an umbrella. So there was that, because that used to be like, if you listen to some old podcasts, and that's back in the days when I started in Europe, like I had to use a different email address than the email address for my North American account. But eventually they made the systems better where it's all linked. You can use the same logins and everything. And sorry, go ahead.
I made an account in Singapore about a year ago, and it did force a new email address. Do you know if that one's still the same, or?
I don't know. I have not tried Singapore yet. But one thing I will also say is, and somebody had commented on one of my videos the other day, is it safer to set it up with a different email address for fear that like if their US account got shut down, is the other one to be shut down less likely? I tend to see if an account or a listing gets shut down, it generally tends to be marketplace specific. Now, if you're doing something that egregious that they're going to shut down all of your, maybe egregious is the wrong word. If Amazon's algorithm believes you're doing something so egregious that it wants to shut down all of your marketplaces and all of your listings, chances are it will find a way to link this with a million other ways other than the email address used for the
completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. We also saw a bunch of like weird Canada account suspensions over the last few months, and they were like connecting them through shipping addresses of warehouses, which was kind of some false flags in my opinion. Very weird. If anybody
that was about
that,
3-4 months ago. It seemed like all of a sudden that happened. I haven't heard many of those lately. Have you?
Yeah, we got them all. We got like 7 of them fixed. It was crazy busy for a while.
Right.
And there was like a 1 week time period where all you had to do on that appeal was literally just say, "Hey, you guys messed up," and then Amazon would say, "Okay, cool, appeal accepted." And now it's back to like the typical POA plan, which stinks. So sometimes rushing helps on Amazon, and then other times it doesn't. When it comes to appeals, never rush. But for anybody that filed during that 7-day period, they let everybody in. It was weird. Snuko says Kevin's video quality is not good. We know. We're sorry. We tried to fix it.
Sorry. It looks good on my end. I mean, I can turn off the video and turn back on.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll work. Dr. Kaz says, my biggest issue with international is that my ASINs don't show up on other marketplaces and annoying to list. Any advice to ensure ASINs are showing up when product ad search in other marketplaces?
Sorry, is my video better?
It is not, but let's keep going.
I tried switching.
That's a live show for you. It is what it is.
Yeah,
we got 40 active viewers right now, so they want to hear from you anyway.
Okay, so to ensure ASINs are showing up on product search and other marketplaces, so you're going to do it right. I believe you got to send in inventory into those marketplaces, which involves creating the listings. And whether you do bulk upload files or just individually do them, there's lots of great services that can help you with that. My Amazon guy I know is good at like bulk upload files. I have a service where I help people with some of this stuff. So at the end of the day, you have to create the listing. It's not just going to go up there on its own. If you may already see your product when you go and like on Amazon.ca, somebody might be drop shipping off of your US listing. But in order for them to show up, you have to be the one to make it show up.
So I think this is a good topic to discuss because if you're using the global account, first of all, you're going to have the ability to sync the inventory or sync the ASINs rather, not the inventory. And I think there's one of the fastest ways to get the ASINs to show up. It also connects all the data. And if you're the first one to market, it protects you as well. This is actually a really, really important point for people to listen to. If you are not the first person to list an ASIN in another country and somebody else does it, they can corrupt the data. You have a hazmat issue where your title is different in a different country. You can't clear hazmat in the US. I've seen it every day, many, many times. If somebody lists in drug paraphernalia and they do a black hat attack and you know they open up your item in ASIN in another country, Germany, Canada, wherever it might be, if you had simply just listed the item yourself in these other countries, it protects you against that. So Dr. Cause, I'd say, while it's a pain in the butt, you're right. It's a little annoying to list, even if you don't even want to plan to sell or ship internationally. I think the takeaway that I would give people today in today's session is you should still list your items internationally. Now, I think Kevin, you'd be the first person to say, go get the sales. But I'm saying, even if you don't want the sales, at least list.
Yeah, and you know, it's one of those things that there's bots out there that are scraping 1 million listings at a time and adding them. So chances are your listing might already be there. And one thing I will just say is if you do send in stock, one thing I've seen is that if you send in stock to another country, you might have like, okay, I'm brand registered. I have my UK trademark. I have all this. Why are you not giving me attribution to the listing? But they generally will once you have skin. Although sometimes I've seen where they'll say, well, once you send stock in, then we will give you attribution on the listing, even though like it's like something like weird on the listing page.
So the Amazon, so if we're going to talk about like the pyramid of control of listings, right? So we got the catalog team at the very top of the pyramid. Right underneath that's the brand registry. Right underneath that is selling history / first to list the item. And then underneath that's like everybody else. And so brand registry becomes really crucial and important because of that. But sometimes even brand registry falls short if you haven't listed the item in another country. So lot to think about there. Dan Gessler says, do you think Amazon will eventually make international selling a lot simpler for US FBA sellers? And I don't know if he's asking about remote fulfillment, or if he's asking about like, I don't know, a program to ship your crap overseas or something. But what do you think, Kevin?
Well, I mean, here's the way I look at it is going back to what I was saying earlier, that like in Canada, even though it's 12% of the population, oftentimes people see much higher percentages of sales versus their US sales because there's less competition. And so I'm all for, you know, if filling out a form is going to scare some people away, well, good. So the people that will fill out the forms will get the extra sales and it'll be worth their while, so that once a year they have to file another form, but yet they're getting disbursements every 2 weeks. And so I think it's one of those things that Amazon keeps coming up with new programs, like, you know, like the FBA export thing where, you know, people can buy off of your listing in the US, or, you know, there's a global store. They've got all these different things, but anytime they make it simple, someone's paying the toll, so to speak. And so it could be that someone is paying, you know, for the additional customs, the additional shipping, takes longer to get to them. All these programs that where they make it super simple, someone is paying. And oftentimes that really is the seller based on lost sales.
So what you're saying is do tough work, get business advantage instead of hashtag passive income?
Yes. Yes. Or the guy who, at least I think of when I think of passive income, Pat Flynn, like on his show for years, it's, you know, always been about do the hard work up front so you can reap the benefits later.
That is a good way to put it. I haven't thought about it that way before. That's a good one. All right. Mikhail says, my ASIN got wrongfully restricted from advertising, saying it's regarding boosting libido. It's been 20 days with no luck to resolve that issue. Any suggestion on that? I'll take this one first. So anytime I've had an ad taken down for a medical claim, I've never once got it back up, not a single time. And we've tried like probably 50 times on 50 different ASINs. Libido is a very touchy subject right now. If you have a test booster, Mikhail, that's the problem. You will never get that ad turned back on, in my opinion. And we've tried everything. You would have to nuke the listing, remove all the copy, and try and get them to reinstate it. And they may still decline it just based on your category alone. So if you have a test booster, that's a non-starter. I'm so sorry. If it's something else, if you think it's just innocently in a subcategory that's not a test booster, then you might have a shot, but it's still pretty unlikely. Kevin, what are your thoughts, if any?
So I'm curious about this. So like when he says the advertising is restricted, is this more at the ASIN level, or if he tried using a different SKU and
It's
running an
ASIN
ad
level.
to the new? Oh, it's completely at the ASIN level. Okay.
Yeah, it's the ASIN. Yeah, it's like the touch of death from advertising, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've not had that. I've had some of mine get flagged for adult, and there's nothing adult other than maybe adults might use the product in
That
just
one's
normal everyday
that's
life.
the easiest one to
Okay.
fix. I'll tell you a minor anecdote here. We have a client that sells rope, and somebody took a picture of using said rope in an interesting way in the bedroom, and got
Oh,
and the product review got it turned into an adult listing.
really?
Yes, and we had to fight for probably 2 weeks to fix that one. So
Wow.
it was a really weird one.
Yeah, I had images that recently got taken down. And Amazon sent a vague email, and what was the most direct was it can't have nudity or sexual content. And
I
there's
haven't
nothing
seen that one
nude
before, but I have a friend who has a New Wave swoon buoy, and his buoys would show scantily clad women, and he would have an issue with that in the main image. But as long as it wasn't in the main image, he was okay.
Gotcha. Well, but I had no women in it. It was just the product. And so we took the images down and we re-added them, and then now they're fine, it seems like.
Yeah, sometimes just simply reloading and try it again might work. All right, Snuko says, depends on your sales. Some of my slow SKU 200, some faster 1500. I believe he's talking about the SKU
the quantity listings.
Yeah, back to that. Definitely could happen. Mikhail says, international question. Some ASINs share their reviews across different marketplaces and some not. What could be a reason for not sharing reviews of the same ASIN? First question I would ask you, Mikhail, are you using the same UPC number across marketplaces? That'd be the first question I ask. Feel free to follow up on that. Let us know. Kevin, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah. So, I mean, as long as you're using the same ASIN or UPC, because, really in Amazon world, if you think about it, the UPC is synonymous to the ASIN. It's just, you can't take an ASIN to Walmart. Whereas you could take a UPC for the same product somewhere else. So it will go across. Now, one of the reasons why sometimes they don't add up is if, let's say, you have 10 variations of a product. As we all know, the variations will add up to the total number of reviews on a listing. Whereas if you only have 3 variations in the other country, they're not going to all add up. And so even if it's, 1 for 1, I've seen it where they don't add exactly the same, like, single standalone products in one country and a single standalone in another. Sometimes it'll be off by a couple. Why? I haven't quite figured out, but like it should still be in the ballpark.
I think it's another net benefit to listing all of your products internationally, even if you don't plan to sell, just maybe because the reviews might combine on a parentage, even though Amazon's pretty much signaled like, hey, we're not going to combine reviews on parentages anymore. Still worth a shot. Never know. It seems like Europe's always like 6 to 12 months behind the US with their policies anyway.
Well, yes, Amazon in the US is always kind of the forefront on everything. Now, one thing I will say is going back to the whole review thing is people in other countries seem to leave more reviews because they've probably been less aggressively pushed by sellers over the years to leave reviews. And so like Canadians, for example, it's for any Canadians listing, this is a sign of respect what I'm about to say. Americans don't like it when we ever say anything that's kind of stereotypical, but Canadians are stereotypically nice and they tend to leave very nice reviews. And so that can also help you. So your chances are, out of 1,000 sales, however many reviews you would have gotten in the US, you'll probably get more as a percentage in Canada, and they might actually be higher.
That's a good tip right there, guys. Push your email review requests a little harder in Canada, it sounds like. All right, Brett at FBA Excel says, I've got NARF set up. That's the North American Remote Fulfillment Program. Mm-hmm. And basically just took my USA price and increased my prices on my Canada listing by 30%. Good strategy, bad strategy. Any better price strategy to account for exchange, etc.
Yeah. So, I mean, the nice thing is right now, and this might be for the foreseeable future based on, I don't mean to get political or economical, but we're printing a lot of money here in this country, as most countries, but our printing press might be going faster than some other countries. So I've noticed it's advantageous to bring money from other countries into the US because the exchange rates tend to be favorable coming this way. And so 30% is probably fine now, but if it goes the other way around, which the pendulums tend to swing kind of somewhat of a wave, they're not like Zimbabwe type waves, but they tend to fluctuate a little bit.
I used to sell trillion-dollar notes at a company called Atmex, and they were from Zimbabwe. So
I've heard that they've gotten to like multiple $1 trillion. So here we are. I think they're talking about like another $3 trillion, stimulus package, for not stimulus, but like infrastructure. And so that could have just been three bills. $3 trillion. Here you go.
Yeah, where they give 2 trillion to the rest of the world, and they spend $1 trillion on us. But yeah, all right, we won't go there.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say, I tend to use more as a rule of thumb 1.4. You do have additional costs, like even like your fulfillment fee is going to be a little bit more expensive for NARF.
So go up 40% on NARF. Got it. Okay.
Well, and keep in mind, this is because you're really talking about the ratios, because it's not really going up 40% in price. So if it's like 1 to 1.33, so if you're selling a product for $20, the equivalent in Canadian dollars, if it's 1 to 1.33, which is actually a little more favorable than that. Well, it depends on which direction you're looking at, but that'd be like 26.60. So I tend to find people in Canada will pay a little bit higher prices for things. Not like in that example, you wouldn't charge $37 necessarily for a product, but maybe $28, $29 might make sense, just because Canada is an expensive country.
So I have a lot of videos on NARF. If anybody's curious, you guys can watch this after the stream today. Just type in NARF, my Amazon guy, or click on the link I've just posted. But I document a lot of like what happens in NARF and how to load the templates and stuff if anybody's curious. All right, let's go to our next question here. This one's interesting. Anna asked, any experience or advice on selling in UAE, which I believe that's the Middle East areas, yeah? United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, almost looks like, isn't that a picture of the UAE in the background? What's the hotel that looks like the sail?
Very middle, it might be. I can't tell.
Yeah, so it's like yes. So in UAE, I've only talked to a couple people that have tried there, and it seems like it's been pretty much a dud. The challenge is oftentimes I have come to learn that it was some of the newer marketplaces, just wait until it's the Burj Al Arab. That's what it's called, I believe. The sale hotel.
Couldn't quite compare it, but interesting.
Yes. But if you type in Burj, B-U-R-J, Al Arab.
B-U-R-J. All right. Let's try that. So I guess that was that top one there.
Well, there's the Burj Khalifa, which is like the tallest building, or was the tallest building in the world.
Sure.
But then there's also, there you go. It's the second row on the right. Burj Al Arab.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's like a 7-star hotel.
So what do you think? Worth launching in that platform or too early?
I would say too early. And some of the newer ones, I'm not sure if it's there yet, but last I knew, they didn't have PPC there or Singapore. And so some of these newer marketplaces, yeah. So, I mean, you're totally flying blind as far as like the tools don't really work. And even if they, the software tools, even if they pretended to give you demand, I mean, like, how much data does it really have to guess off of? So I tend to say, even if Amazon's emailing you daily about going into the UAE, which I felt like they were for a while, I would get like 2 or 3 emails.
In Brazil. Yeah,
right,
that's
exactly.
The last 7 days it's been Brazil.
Right. If you're not yet in Canada, UK, Germany, now maybe I'd say Australia. If you're not also in Italy, Spain, France, don't get too caught up in the new ones just because Amazon's trying to sell you on it, because they're trying to build the catalog in those countries. They're trying to get to minimum viable marketplace, which I don't even think they're there yet.
They are not, in my opinion. But I think they're pushing it pretty hard. We'll see what they do. All right. So Firm says, I have a trademark in progress in the USA. What's the best way to protect my brand when I expand to Canada, Germany, and the UK? Should I get my trademark in every country I plan to sell in? So I'll take this one first. So I would say at bare minimum, file for your brand registry now in all of those countries. If that's the only action you take, that's a pretty good action. Attorneys that I've spoken to would say trademark your brand in other countries. I'm a little less inclined to say so. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, because I think oftentimes, like, and I mean this respectfully, oftentimes our advice, and this, put myself in this bucket. Here I am talking about international selling, so my advice is somewhat skewed by the fact that I have services where I help people sell internationally.
Yep.
Now I think I can back it up with, the results people would get versus other things they could do in their business. In fact, I have a podcast episode coming out tomorrow. Thursday, with a former client, and he said in it that it was the best investment he had made all year in 2020, and he's crushing it.
That's a big one. Yeah, that's a big one.
And so I would say, keep in mind, where is the advice coming from? And so I don't want to get sued. So I don't mean anything in a libelous sense against attorneys or anything like that. But like, just in general, when someone's giving you advice to do or don't do something, they may have 100% great intentions. Their intentions might be good. They might be factual, but they always are going to be skewed through the lens of what puts food on the table somewhat. And so
good advice.
So just in general, and I had a lawyer tell me this, so I'm not making this up myself. So, I'll use sales tax. Back before the Wayfair case, where it was even more gray than it is now, which it's probably grayer than most people probably will realize. A lot of the advice out there was register everywhere because it's going to be safe. I went to an attorney who every hour I talked to him was like a car payment. And he basically was like, I don't agree with all that advice. And this is he does tax stuff all day long. A very smart guy. And, he had a different take because his advice wasn't, and I don't mean this derogatory to people that do filings, but like his advice wasn't based on filings. His base was based on hours of talking to him. So his model was influencing some of his advice, and he admitted it.
So and by the way, if anybody who wants to check out Kevin's website, it's maximizingecommerce.com. And he also has a podcast. Kevin was one of the first people to bring me on to their podcast in the space. And thank you for doing that, Kevin, by the way. Great podcast and great YouTube channel, a lot of good content. And he has some dedicated content to some of these things. So when a guy is recognizing his own bias live on a podcast like Kevin's doing here, I think that's incredibly insightful and humble of you to do so. All right, let's go to our next question here. So Dan says, would it be difficult for supplement sellers to expand overseas? Any advice for supplement sellers? The easy answer is yes. It's going to be quite difficult. Kevin, do you have any insights?
Yeah, actually, I just put out a video the other day about how to sell supplements in Canada. And so really my advice was to hire someone to help you with it. Because like in Canada, you have to get there. Yep. Yep. And so I have a person that you can talk to. Her name is Linda Beach. Like, she does this for a living. Because Health Canada is a little bit more controls over what's the word I'm looking for? Over the supplements than like the FDA does. And it tends to be that way everywhere. Usually we think of like FDA and the USDA or whoever's in charge of, anything that's like drug or supplement related to be like, really kind of controlling. With pharmaceuticals, yes, but with supplements, not so much in this country. But outside of the US, it tends to be a little more challenging. Now, I'll say this. If you're willing to jump through the hoops, you're probably going to get more benefit from it. So like I know a guy, his name's Mina Elias.
I love Mina.
Mina is a
dynamite.
phenomenal dude. I love that guy. He is, I love him. He's awesome. And he's very transparent. And usually people in the supplement industry are not transparent at all, but he's like very transparent about everything, what he sells, his brands and everything. But one of the things he talked about is that, he might take a product and because maybe the labeling requirements are a little more stringent in the UK than they are in the US. So he'll just sell both places for, using one. So I think he said that publicly. But anyway, yeah, he's a great guy. So if you're interested, I'll just say this. I don't want to put words in his mouth on his tactics he's used for the compliance and whatnot, but he's a great guy to follow in general. Very smart guy, definitely knows his stuff. Very giving person too with his knowledge. So, and he does supplements. And I know he does internationally. So he would be someone to follow along his journey.
So I really like Mina's sentiment. He's a chemist by trade, and so
that's right.
Dude's he's like getting into the cage fight as a chemist. So of course he's going to come to market.
He's a cage fighter too.
Yeah. So pretty cool stuff. All right. So next question we got from Dr. Kaz. Dr. Kaz, I think I've seen you on every live session. Thanks for being a fan. FYI, quick note. I had Amazon translate my listing to German. Then I got a human translator to check it. They were really impressed. Not many changes. I think the text is getting really good.
And that could be the case. It could be the thing better and better. Where I had a human chat and they're like, I don't know how you're making sales. So it just depends on who it is. But if they did a good job, kudos to them. I mean, like as much as like, I know sometimes in these type of things, we kind of, for lack of a better word, badmouth Amazon, or we point out the negatives, but there's a lot they do well. And I give them credit. Amazon as a company is constantly looking to improve. Sometimes there's growing pains along the way that we get baggage about, but like, for the things they do well, we do want to give them credit. And so I'm glad to hear that your German translations worked out for you.
All right. So we're going to go to our next comment. Nylon says, I believe that 200 limit ASIN is no longer in effect as of April 1st. If you go to the news release from March 16th, update to Amazon US referral and FBA fees effective June 1. 2021, and then click 2021 FBA new selection program changes. There is a section on no ASIN limits on new to FBA ASINs. So I have read this release. Notice the key here is no ASIN limits on new to FBA ASINs, but I do believe if you had an older ASIN in play, they're still going to cap it out somewhat. So based on what I'm seeing, I could be wrong on that. And of course they could change it at any point in time. We shall see. Unless that applies to a total number of ASINs and not a quantity per ASIN, and I'm misinterpreting. There is a place in that news release where they do talk about just that. They actually previously charged if you listed too many ASINs into your account, and they also reversed that. They're no longer going to charge if you have over 100,000 ASINs or something crazy like that. So Nylon, I do believe it speaks to both points you're bringing up. Brett says, running with NARV program, just took my USA price, increased it by 30%. I think we've already covered that one. Let's go to the next. Talking about Amazon Europe, having all of your stock in just in one warehouse would make our product prime for all countries. I know you're going to have something to talk about on this one.
Yes and no. So it used to be a lot of times people would go into the UK and then they would make that kind of a base of operations. And as long as you're not storing or importing into a country, then you don't have that requirements up until a certain sales threshold, which they call distance selling. So yes, but now there's the borders closed off from the UK. So UK to the rest of Europe is like shipping from Mexico to Canada, two completely different countries. And so you can use France, Germany, whatever you want. There's a variety of different reasons why you might pick one country over the other. But you could use one of those other countries in Europe as a base of operations to store from. Amazon's probably going to send you all these emails about like, hey, sign up for, free VAT services. And usually want you to register like everywhere. And it's not as simple as it sounds. And then what they're trying to do is being able to move your stock around in what's called pan-European. But I would avoid pan-European and go with one country if you're going to go into mainland Europe, meaning the current European Union countries. And I would just do one to start off with. And then when you start seeing sales, then maybe start branching out into registering in more countries. This is now getting into start simple and complicate it later.
I think it's good advice. I have some clients that have, unique inventory in the UK and then also in Germany. Tessa says, what would you suggest doing if a competitor is brand new, transferred 200 plus reviews from the German marketplace that are for a completely different product? So they're playing some games. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah. So, all right. So a competitor is brand new and transferred 200 reviews from the German. Well, so, okay. So if the product launched in Germany and they're just moving it to the US, that's no different, if I'm understanding this correctly, than if they started in the US and we moved it to Germany using the same ASIN. So as long as if all their reviews are legit German reviews, then it is what it is.
I think the problem here, though, Tessa's talking about, though, is that they're using a different product. So, Tessa, what I would do if I were you is I would report that as a violation and say that they've linked the products incorrectly. Chances are Amazon will review it. Be a little squeaky wheel. It's okay to report your competition when they're not playing by the same fair rules. AJ says, as a US-based seller looking to expand to EU, I went to sign up for an account. They asked for a company registration number, but gave no guidance to what that number is. What should I use? Is it the EIN?
What I actually recommend to clients to do is for that particular, I know exactly the field he's talking about. I usually recommend, and this might be counter to a lot of folks, because later on they're going to ask for like your articles of associate or articles of incorporation, although they use a different terminology. Whatever the state issued document is that says your company is a company, I would put what that document number is from the state of Wyoming or the state of Florida or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or wherever you are. I would put that document number as the registration number, because that way, if they compare it later on, it's at least on something than having to explain what an EIN number is and why that EIN number is not in company documents, which most likely it's not going to be.
They should clear up that with like a tooltip, make it a lot easier. All right, Aaron says, ASINs Frozen at setup, all UV sanitizers, pesticide devices. We passed the course, provided our EPA third-party tests. Amazon says under review, but it's been 2 weeks. Aaron, there's 2 fields you need to check out and make sure they're filled in. And I would recommend you watch my pesticide video. Sierra, if you can link to that video, that'd be great. Aaron says, any insight or advice to help move this along? Yep, watch that video, fill in those 2 fields, be squeaky wheel until they clear it. Bodycomp says, thanks so much, guys. You're very welcome. Adam says, I've completed 3 separate shipments into Amazon for one of my products. All 3 have essentially been relaunched since they run out of stock for 1 to 2 months before the next shipment is received. This is a long one. I make $6.31 a unit. I sell 17 units per day, spending very little on PPC. The problem is I cannot stay in stock and cost a lot to re-rank when I run out of inventory within 6 weeks. With only making $6 a unit on a $5 pound bag, using 3PL cuts massively into my profit. So sending units to my house, stripping it in Amazon's too expensive as well. Any suggestions on what I can do? That was a lot to unpack, but you got a handle on that one?
Okay, so it sounds like he hasn't quite gotten to the point where Amazon's increased his storage limits, which if he's doing 16 to 17 a day when he's in stock, you'd think the math would make sense that they would increase his allowable amounts, if I'm understanding the problem. Because if we're using the 60 to 90 day amounts, depending on how Amazon calculates it, that he should be able to increase from 200, like substantially.
Adam, I think we need a little bit more context. I suspect it's not related to shipping restrictions, and I wonder if it's a finance question. Adam, let us know. We'll be able to weigh in a little bit more. Yarrow says, who do you recommend to register in Canada if I don't want to do it myself? Any recommendations, Kevin?
Yes, I can do it for you. Although I also have
maximizingecommerce.com. Go there.
Yes. You can always shoot me an email, Kevin at Maximizing Ecommerce. I haven't, if you're on my email list, I haven't done it yet, but I recently had a couple of workshops where we walk through step by step how to fill out the form and then basically create a whole roadmap of how to get launched in Canada. And so I will likely have a special, just to keep it out there, coming soon to relaunch the recordings of that.
I have a hard stop in 5 minutes. We're going to lightning round probably the next 20 questions. Here we go.
Let's
AJ
do it.
says, can you use EBC in every marketplace with the US trademark? Answer, yes. Just go to brandservices.amazon.com, register the brand in each of those countries. You will get access to A+ content. They even now have a button to transfer it between countries. Brett says, what does MAG charge to create listings in other countries to protect them from black hat sellers if I don't sell it anytime soon? Brett, unfortunately, we only do full service management for anything not explicitly listed as an a la carte service on our website. A+ content, SEO, and trademark services are pretty much the 3 a la carte services. We also actually yesterday launched brand name changes as well. But something like that, Brett, we require full service. Apologies. Javier says, does Amazon take care and pay sales tax in marketplaces like Canada, UK, etc.? Any taxes you have to worry about that you are responsible for? Just the 20% VAT in EU. Anything else, Kevin?
Yes. So in the UK, Amazon's now remitting it for you. Supposedly you're still supposed to file, which would be to your benefit. The EU, that sounds like that's going to be happening. Mexico, that's a whole different cut of beeswax. Canada, you are responsible for it, but you only have to file once a year, and you get credits for things that you were going to be paying for anyway.
That's a good one. Dan says, what's the percentage of US sales we should expect for UK and Germany? I would say Germany is going to be 3x bigger than UK. What's your take, Kevin?
No, I'd be surprised if some email me, kevin@ecommerce.com, if your German sales are 3x your UK sales, and I will send a McDonald's gift card for bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich to my friend from Mag here. So
I might take you up on this one.
Right. So I'll bet you bacon, egg, and cheese that nobody's going to email me with that.
Way better on Germany.
Yeah, right, so I would say, let's say 20 to 30% between the two.
Okay, so it's worth doing. Brett says, our global ratings, which are the reviews that show up without text coming from other marketplaces. The word global is throwing me off. Might just mean any marketplace is considered global. I actually do not know the answer to this one. Do you, Kevin?
Yeah, I know he's talking about like below your US reviews, you start seeing other ones. As long as we're talking the same terminology, then yes, it would be coming from other marketplaces, but it should still have the text.
So the
might
nuance
be in another language.
Yeah, Brett, the nuance to your question about him, the non-text versions, that's the part that's throwing me off, where I'm not 100% confident on this, but I would say they probably do not show non-text star reviews in the regular review section across countries. It would be in the global section only. That would be my guess. Ari says, is Transparency program helping to keep hijackers off your listing? Supposed to. Doesn't keep hijackers off your international listings effectively, in my opinion. Kevin, any thoughts on that one?
I've seen people run into all kinds of problems on Transparency. Like, it becomes a mess, especially with international.
So it makes it worse or better?
From what I've seen, worse.
Interesting.
The clients I've had that I've helped go international have, even outside of the international space, they tend to say they kind of wish they hadn't done Transparency.
That's good feedback. I've never once told anybody to do Transparency. Vinny says, customer put a negative review with a broken picture of my product. Sales have tanked. How do I deal with this? I would file a ticket to try and remove the product review. 3% chance it's going to happen. Go read the community guidelines, every line, read them thoroughly, see if you can find anything in that product review that violates the community guidelines, and try and get it removed. Jamie says, what is it about to sell on Amazon Brazil? So we'll probably have to post a link for you on that one. But Jamie, a lot of people are getting emails from Amazon right now about Brazil. Lisa says, hi, thanks for answering. Amazon is asking to change receiving bank accounts for sellers that use intermediate like Transferwise. What is the best way to do that? I'm non-US. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I do have a video actually on that topic from about a month ago. Amazon changed their policy on payment service providers. So I use Payoneer. Like if you're US, it depends on where you're located, but there's maybe 7 total companies. If you're US based, it's pretty much just ping pong and Payoneer. Scroll up a little bit.
So is it not that one? Amazon policy payments?
Sorry, I don't see your thing.
Here we go. Does that work?
Oh yeah, it's the one that has the update in red, kind of in the
Perfect.
middle.
All right. I just put a link to that. So Lisa, give that a whirl. All right. Dan says, newbie question. When expanding to Europe, do US sellers need to ship product directly overseas, or will Amazon handle that? So NARF would allow you to not have to ship it directly, but other than that, you gotta ship it directly. AJ
Yes.
says, thank you both for all the great info.
Our pleasure.
Wes says, what's the best way to relaunch a product while keeping the reviews? Is it possible to relaunch a variation and rank for the same keywords as the original ASIN? It is. And unfortunately, we're going to have to cut our podcast there. If you got a question that we did not get to, please leave a comment on the video. Kevin will take a look later today and see if he can answer any additional questions, as will I. Anytime I get an international question I don't know the answer to, I bring Kevin in and I say, hey, Kevin, can you answer this question for us? Can you help us out? And he has answered them every single time. Kevin, it was a pleasure bringing you on the My Amazon Guy podcast. For those that want to get to know Kevin a little bit better, go to maximizingecommerce.com. Link posted in the comment section. Thanks for coming on, Kevin.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right, that's the My Amazon Guy podcast today. On Thursday, we're going to have Tyler Jeffcoat come on and talk about a study he has done on the Amazon aggregators and how much they've been able to grow brands on Amazon. And then on Friday at noon EST, come back for a generic Q&A session with Stephen Pope. I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. Appreciate you coming in.